So thanks for the introduction. I think the slides should be also up somehow. Nevertheless, he referred to critical infrastructures. It's more like supply infrastructures I'm talking about. And Fortiss initially was founded as a research project in 2009. So by this year, we'll have our 10-year anniversary. But that's just for the company as such. So today I'm talking about distributed ledger technologies or blockchain-based architectures, which could be applicable for smart cities of the future. Sorry, probably that was a bit loud. So it's not about initial coin offering or another Bitcoin technology. It's about digitization of business processes. So this should be the main application area where a blockchain could be a possible technology. So we are coming from the Internet of Information with regard to self-provided content, information, PDF documents, also forms like presented in Switzerland. So this is part of the digitization process. By introducing blockchain or distributed ledger technologies, we will shift to the Internet of Information to the Internet of Values. So it will be all about asset management, about having common contracts, having a trustworthy network, and which is not governed upside down, but probably also the capability of managing things from the bottom, so everyone could participate. Whereas the basic technologies for blockchain were already available 40 years ago. So it's nothing but public-private key infrastructures combined with a distributed register and immutability. So this is, in general, nothing new. What's new is the aspect of decentralization. So that technology has the capability of really involving everyone of interest, every stakeholder. But this is also the challenge later on. I'll come to that. And since all the technologies used in distributed ledgers is quite mature, we can also speak of a technology or technological robustness of the infrastructure itself. And of course, by the public-private key infrastructure, also immutability. So no change of the data later on can be guaranteed. And with the decentralization, also the distribution of information comes. And blockchain or distributed ledger technologies, as I said before, are more or less building up a network of trust so that every party in that network could verify transactions or data sets, anything, all the activities which were carried out by all the other participants. And this especially allows for transparency. So everyone is allowed to verify, to have a look on the data, to monitor all the transactions in the past and make its own conclusions about that. Especially some of the technologies, like Hyperledger Fabric, an example, also provides the privacy of data. So they come up with a concept which allows private communication among participants. So especially this is important when you have confidential information which you don't want to share within the whole distributed ledger network, but only with dedicated partners, so especially when it comes to private data or sensitive information. And of course, blockchain always is accompanied, or in most cases, with some incentive mechanisms. So most promising or most relevant one would be the transfer of token. So imagine a parking ticket or energy which I purchase for my EV. I will receive tokens, or other technologies from the energy domain would be solar coins. So for every kilowatt hour I feed in the network, I'll get a solar coin, which is some incentive. And this could be also spread within the city context. So whenever I participate at a workshop, or I do some pollution collection or garbage distribution. So this could be incentivized by city tokens, which then can be later on used for free parking or administrative purposes. And again, coming back to transparency or verification of activities, what we can do also depending on the technology is something what we call programmable trust. So by using the concept of smart contracts, we could implement a digital contract which can be verified and executed by every participating party. So it's really a promising technology which could allow for disruptive innovation if it is used correctly. And we, as a research institute, we don't want to implement or develop a new blockchain technology or distributed ledger technology. We want more or less the knowledge transfer in order how to use technologies right. And therefore, we come up with a methodology in order for people like you, for smart cities, for industries, for any partner, in order, okay, here I have a fancy use case, I want to apply blockchain on it. And we could tell by our methodology in order if it's a blockchain use case, and probably also go in the direction of what would be an appropriate blockchain technology to use for that specific use case. Another thing, for which domains is it interesting? So there was an interesting study by McKinsey, and what we see here on the very top, where we have the impact on the x-axis on blockchain technology, how it could impact the digitization process from low to high, and on the x-axis we have the feasibility or the complexity in order to really put it in reality. We've heard before digitization of especially governmental processes or smart city processes is really complex, and whoever managed it yet, I can just follow the words, congratulations. So you did a great job, and it would be really nice to see how you did it. But actually this is not the case, not in India, not in Germany, not in Switzerland. And here we see the public sector really has a very high impact, but the complexity is also very high. In contrast to an example, manufacturing or logistic processes where the other arrows point to. So there the impact is not that high, and also feasibility is rather manageable. But coming again to what challenges do we face when we want to apply blockchain? So it's about governance. We have different structures of networks, different stakeholder setups in who want to cooperate. Either it's fully distributed and everyone should participate by using permissionless public blockchain, which is indicated here on the top right image. So if we have a stakeholder network which looks like that, I would rather go for some public blockchain approach, like Ethereum, for example, is a proper technology to use that. If it has inter-organizational processes where I have also a certain level of trust with my supplier networks, with my customer networks, I could also go for a permissioned chain. Down there we see an administrative version where I just have a coordinator who sets up an example smart contract in order how those stakeholders should cooperate among each other. So this is regarding the point law is code, or is code the law. So this is how those stakeholders could be managed by using blockchain technologies. Also lead organizations, like indicated on the right-hand side, would be also applicable for certain blockchain technologies. So imagine private chains or permission chains where the validation of transactions or the transfer of information is validated by just a specific set of nodes. Another thing we had a look on by our methodology was the IoT architecture. So it's about transfer and communication of information. How could that be applied? Beforehand, we had several sensors collect various information about environmental status and things like that. Those sensors are more or less low power, low processing power, so they are not applicable to verify complex contracts or do the verification on the data they are processed. So we have several IoT devices which first exchange information, communicate among each other, imagine a wireless sensor network, and then just the result or the assumption could be put on the chain for further processing or for the validation. Other use cases, beforehand we had electric vehicles. Autonomous driving would be the next step to that one. So there probably for monitoring traffic at junctions where we have more than 1,000 violations a day per conjunction, we could directly communicate each violation to the blockchain, so it's verifiable by authorities, by the driver, license plate, etc. And also hybrid approaches are possible by combining different technologies. So we come up, among others, with a landscape with the 3 dimensions: communication, storage, and processing, whereas different technologies could be applied. Whereas for communication, it's mostly the data transfer by using applied protocols in order to make the verification that that data really reached its destination. For storage, we have massive amounts of data, as we heard before from the Space Association. So if I want to verify all that information or make it available under certain conditions, so probably some private persons will have another view, another access to the database than public authorities in order to manage building or new constructions. So therefore, storage blockchain technologies could be an applicable solution. Also processing for stateful logic, so in order to rather process complex transactions which relate to critical infrastructures might be applicable. Nevertheless, we are not only developed a methodology, we also come up with several prototypes which are also applicable for smart cities, like an example, badges chain for parking badges for specific car owners who have registered their vehicles somewhere else where they need to do the parking later on. Or in the beginning, we had that talk about that open data for Indian society, more or less, or urban cities from the professor. We came up with a similar approach, like an open data transformation system, which allows for everyone to push data in the database and to verify what transformations or what modifications were put on the data. Yeah, time's up. There's a red sign. Just want to sketch a governmental process in the end, which is in German, about child benefit, which is rather complex. We heard that before. When I want to have something from the government, I first need to run to several institutions to collect the information, but it's the government. So from the customer's perspective, they all have the information there. So why me running around to all those institutes in order to ask for something? And this is also a beneficial use case where I can apply blockchain in order to get the trust or the verification of each of these institutes that the information which is passed out to me is correct and right. Thank you for the audience. I think further questions can be answered